welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. Today's question comes from esteemed colleague Kevin, who asks, "Hi Jess, my name is Kevin, and I recently started a new position where I am in charge of booking travel for my executive team, several salespeople who travel a lot, and even the occasional contractor who needs to come to our office or be sent to a customer location. Do you have any tips you can share to manage travel for so many different people?" Kevin, first off, thank you so much for your question. Second, congratulations on the new role. Big congratulations at the time of recording, summer of 2024. The job market is an absolute uphill battle, so kudos to you for landing a new role. I hope you love it. Managing travel. Yes, getting to your question. It's something that I've done a lot over the years. Definitely something that is easier when you are booking for internal parties. Personally, I get a little stressed out handling so many people's personal confidential information. For anyone booking travel, you need to have the person's full government name. You need to have their full date of birth. You might be privy to their here in the United States, and I think other countries participate as well, we have something called Global Entry, and it's a program that you can get that includes TSA PreCheck, which is awesome. Like, it's nice to have the Global Entry is basically like a speed run through U.S. Customs. You do an interview with your initial application, and then you are fingerprinted, you're in the system, but then when you come back from international travel, depending on the airport, depending on the country, you just scan your fingerprints, scan your face, and come right on through. So it's a lot of personal information that you might be privy to, and I personally don't mind having all of that information for myself and my executive and my husband. Those are kind of the three main people that I do the most travel booking for. But when it gets into multiple internal folks, like maybe you're booking, you said you have an executive team, Kevin. So maybe you have a CEO, a president, a vice president, any number of directors, depending on your company structure. Your executive team might mean something very different. But that right there is a lot of people's personal information to have access to. And then on top of that, your high traveling salespeople. I've definitely worked at a company before where our salespeople spent more time out selling than they did in their home city and state. So sometimes that can be a lot of people, and especially once it gets into the territory of having external parties that you have to book travel for, that is my least favorite. At least with internal parties, you've got, HR policies and procedures, a lot of stuff there. And definitely being an executive assistant, it's something that confidentiality, discretion, those are all values that I hope you bring to the table. Not only Kevin, not only myself, but anyone listening. So be careful with all of that confidential information. For me personally, it really stresses me out when people just send me their entire full name, date of birth, airline numbers, whether it's their loyalty program, their Global Entry, their TSA PreCheck, their Clear, like all of that information, and they just send it to me via email, which is not a super secure method of communication. But again, it's a little easier when you're booking for internal folks. And then when you are booking for external stakeholders, so if that's a contractor of some way, shape, or form that your company does business with, that you are then booking travel on their behalf, that is very much my least favorite person to book any travel for. There's definitely pros and cons to these folks, whether it's your executive team or your salespeople or your contractors, booking their own travel. If they book their own, it's something where they can reap the benefits of points, miles, cashback, whatever programs it is that they might have through their credit cards, preferred airlines, preferred hotels. If they do a ton of travel, they definitely have those preferences. So booking your own definitely has pros. You get to pick your own seat. You get to use the upgrades when they're available in the way that you see fit. Maybe you have drink coupons or airline lounge passes, anything that might be within your different programs as a seasoned and frequent traveler. So for these folks to be coming to you with their travel needs, it means that either they don't care about reaping the maximum of the benefits, or they're busy enough that it's really a time saver. It's really a good thing for them to have somebody else booking their travel. There's definitely a con to booking your own travel. It might take a while to be reimbursed, which is kind of a drag. For me personally, working in a small company of 2, I like to reimburse people the same day if I can. But you might be working with bigger companies that only run reimbursements once a month, or maybe they run it every other week, or maybe they run it whenever they run payroll, and every company is different. I've worked at places that pay you once a month. I've worked at places that pay you every other Friday. And that turns into, in certain months, you might have 3 Fridays. So even though it evens out to the same number of payrolls throughout the year, those 3 Friday months definitely feel like a bonus. And then it's extra time and system for running expenses. It might be something where you're paid, like my current payroll is, I think the 15th and the last of the month. So you just never know when you're booking your own travel, if you'll get reimbursed quickly or if you'll be a while hanging on to that expense yourself. So there's definitely pros and cons to people booking their own travel versus having an internal person who handles most of the travel booking. So Kevin, since you're the one who is booking for your executive team, your salespeople, your external stakeholders, definitely make sure you speak with your legal and or financial professionals in your organization to get solid answers. I am happy to share anecdotal experiences, and that's really the whole meat and potatoes of this podcast, is that I'm an expert only in my own experience and opinions. They're definitely going to be very different from a lot of other people's. Maybe you might find similar themes and ways of thinking that you appreciate and enjoy. But when it comes to anything like this, speak with the legal and or financial professionals in your life. And by that, I mean, if you have in-house counsel, make sure you're speaking with your lawyers, your company lawyers, to ensure that the company handbook is up to date. Refer back to Ask an Assistant episode 21 for a little refresher on employee handbooks. If you're not sure about policies and procedures, like if the employee handbook doesn't outline things clearly enough, sit down with accounting. Get someone in accounting, whether that's your CFO, your chief financial officer, whether that's a mid or lower level accounting person. Maybe it's the person who even does all of the reimbursement every month, whatever the cadence might be. Just sit down, especially since you're newer in your role. That's a great time to show accounting that you care, that things are done appropriately. It's a great time to build some relationships with your accounting people, with your legal people, and just make sure that you start off on the right foot. You know, that you're not just kind of winging it. You're not just taking your company credit card and booking things for people willy-nilly, that it is something where you want to follow the company's policies and procedures. Make sure that receipts are captured and stored, whether that means in a file on a local network. If there's a software that your company uses, make sure that you have a login for that and that everything is going where it belongs, especially if you're working in something that has like a big accounting or expense reporting software. A lot of times there are budgets tied to that. You want to make sure that your salespeople budget for travel is being properly allocated to the salespeople, or that it's being properly allocated to your executive. Again, every company is different. Every company has different policies, processes, procedures. Make sure you follow them and make sure things go where they need to go. especially if there's any reimbursement associated with that. Like, for example, if your salesperson is going to a client site where you already have a contract in place, maybe there is some reimbursement involved for having someone go out to the client site. And maybe that might be more the contractor or another employee than the salesperson, because sales is kind of an expense that the company absorbs while you're trying to land the client. Anyhow, whoever it is going wherever it is they're going, make sure if a client is reimbursing, that happens appropriately, whether you're the right person to do that, whether accounting is the right person to do that. If your executive is on a bunch of boards and goes all over the country or world to participate in board meetings, those expenses are absolutely reimbursable by the board. So just make sure that receipts are collected, that they are submitted appropriately in your company's process, and that if there is any reimbursement associated with it, that you get that money back. Because that's only fair, that's appropriate. You know, it's not something, you're not doing anything. I know money can make people feel weird. So like, you're not doing anything weird. You're not doing anything out of the ordinary for saying, hey, you invited my executive to XYZ thing. Here's all of our expenses for that. Yeah. So after you've spoken with your legal and or financial people, make sure that all of that language is properly documented in your employee handbooks. Follow the processes and procedures. That's pretty applicable to internal parties. If you have people who travel enough, like your salespeople, your executives, hopefully some of them have their own company credit cards. Absolutely, under no circumstance ever do you use your personal purchasing power for anything company related. Do not do it unless you work at a small company, unless you have an agreement in place, like a written legal document that you have reviewed, the company has reviewed, everybody feels good about you using your personal credit card. Do not do a handshake agreement with anybody at your company. Oh, could you just for this month put it on your personal card? I promise I'll pay you back. Absolutely not. Make sure that you have company mandated purchasing power, company regulated, company endorsed purchasing power. Do not use your own. The number of horror stories I've heard from people about, oh, well, I was, the company was struggling, or my boss asked me to, or whatever. My executive asked me to, my financial professional asked me to. Absolutely not. Make sure you have company sanctioned purchasing power to be doing all of this travel booking. For me personally, especially when it comes to external parties, when somebody is a contractor, and this is definitely where you want to speak with your legal and financial professionals. In some states, don't quote me on this, I am not a legal or financial professional, but I believe, especially in the state of California, I did live there for 3 years, and my executive does presently live there. He's lived there the entire 10 years we've worked together. I believe in the state of California, when you start booking travel for someone as an external party, it can kind of start to blur the line between someone being a contractor and someone being an employee. And the same thing goes for, like, you don't want to get a contractor on your company credit card. Like, you don't want to issue them a company card, because again, that's blurring the line between, are they an employee? Are they a contractor? And depending on the industry that you're in, depending on where your business is located, depending on where the contractor is located, it can blur a lot of lines on a lot of things. So again, speak with the lawyers, speak with the accountants, make sure you're doing everything appropriately. Speaking as someone who has a business and does a lot of work as a contractor, I always preferred to book my own, even if it took a little bit of time to get reimbursed. It just gave me control over the time and the date and the airline. I'm not a very good morning person. I don't want the 6 a.m. flight unless I absolutely can't avoid it. And if someone else is booking travel on your behalf, you might not always necessarily have a say. I also had a company credit card. I am in between company credit cards at the moment. But I had a company credit card that gave me, I think, 2 or 2.5% cash back, which is pretty sweet. So on top of being reimbursed by the client, I would also get cash back from my credit card company. Again, it just keeps things clean. It delineates between you as an employee versus a contractor. So make sure that you're following company policies and procedures. Really stay on top of those receipts, and yeah, just maybe even develop a little micro process for yourself to make sure that you're following the greater company policies and procedures. And yeah, that's what I've got for you today, Kevin. I really hope that was helpful to anyone listening. I hope you are having an absolutely wonderful week. Here in upstate New York, we are getting our 4th heat wave of the year, which is not great. Very grateful for central air conditioning this time of year. Staying hydrated, staying out of the sun, trying to exercise before noon or after like 5 o'clock. Nobody's getting heat stroke on my watch. Stay hydrated, call a friend, and until next week, take care.